Maria Rodriguez woke up at 5:30 in the morning, just like she did every day. The small room on the third floor of the Harrison mansion was dark and quiet. She sat up slowly, rubbing her tired eyes. Her body ached from yesterday's work, but she never complained. This was her life now, and she was grateful for it. She walked to the tiny bathroom and splashed cold water on her face. Looking in the mirror, she saw a woman who looked older than her 42 years. Her dark hair had streaks of gray that she never bothered to color. Her hands were rough from years of cleaning and scrubbing, but her eyes were kind, and when she smiled, her whole face lit up. Maria had come to America from a small village in Mexico 3 years ago. Her parents were old and sick, and they needed medicine that cost a lot of money. Her younger brother had found her this job through a friend who knew someone who worked for rich families. The pay was good, much better than anything she could earn back home. Every month she sent most of her salary to her parents. What she kept for herself was just enough for basic things. The Harrison family lived in a mansion that was bigger than her entire village back home. When Maria first saw it, she could not believe that one family lived in such a huge house. There were 12 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, a library, a gym, a pool, and rooms that nobody ever used. Mr. Harrison was a billionaire who owned companies that made computer parts. Mrs. Harrison spent her time going to charity events and shopping with her friends. But the real reason Maria loved her job was the twins. Ethan and Evan Harrison were 7 years old, with bright blue eyes and messy brown hair that never stayed combed for long. They were good boys, polite and sweet, but Maria could see they were lonely. Their father was always traveling for business. Their mother was busy with her social life. The boys had tutors who came to teach them different subjects and nannies who watched them, but nobody really spent time with them. Nobody except Maria. Maria got dressed in her plain gray uniform and tied her hair back in a tight bun. She went downstairs to the kitchen and started making breakfast. The cook, Mrs. Chen, would not arrive until 7, but Maria liked to make special things for the boys. Today she made pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, using blueberries for the eyes and a strawberry for the nose. The twins loved these pancakes. At 7:15, she heard small footsteps running down the hallway. Ethan and Evan burst into the kitchen, still in their pajamas. Their faces lit up when they saw Maria. "Maria!" Ethan shouted, running to hug her legs. Evan followed close behind. "Good morning, my sweet boys," Maria said, her accent making the words sound musical. She hugged them both. "Did you sleep well?" "I had a dream about dinosaurs," Evan said, climbing onto a chair at the kitchen table. "Big ones with long necks. And I dreamed we went to the moon," Ethan added, sitting next to his brother. "We found moon rocks and brought them home." Maria smiled and placed the Mickey Mouse pancakes in front of them. Their eyes went wide with delight. This was the part of her day she loved most, these simple moments with the boys. They talked and laughed while they ate. They told her about their dreams, their worries, their ideas, things they never told their parents. Mrs. Harrison came down at 8 o'clock. She was a tall, thin woman with blonde hair that was always perfect. She wore expensive clothes and high heels even at breakfast. She looked at her phone while drinking black coffee. "Maria," she said without looking up, "I need you to take the boys to Westfield Mall today. They need new shoes for the summer." Maria felt her stomach tighten. She had never taken the boys anywhere by herself. Usually a nanny or driver took them places while Maria stayed at the house to clean. "Me, ma'am?" Maria asked quietly. "Yes, you," Mrs. Harrison said, finally looking up. "The nanny called in sick, and I have a very important charity luncheon at noon. James is in Singapore. The boys trust you, and it is just a simple shopping trip. Robert will drive you. Just buy them each 2 pairs of shoes. Here is my credit card." Mrs. Harrison handed Maria a black credit card and went back to looking at her phone. The conversation was over. Maria nodded and took the card with shaking hands. She had never held something worth so much money before. The boys were excited. They jumped up and down, asking when they could leave. Maria told them to go get dressed first. She watched them run upstairs, their laughter echoing through the big, empty house. Maria went to her room and changed out of her uniform. She did not have many clothes. She put on her best outfit, a simple navy blue dress that she wore to church on Sundays, and flat brown shoes that were old but comfortable. She looked at herself in the mirror and felt nervous. The mall would be full of rich people in fancy clothes. She would look like what she was, a poor maid who did not belong there. But the boys needed shoes, and Mrs. Harrison had asked her to do this. Maria took a deep breath and said a quick prayer. She could do this. It was just shopping. How hard could it be? At 9:30, Robert the driver brought the car around. It was a big black SUV that cost more than Maria would earn in 10 years. The boys climbed into the back seat and Maria sat between them. Robert drove smoothly through the city streets. The boys pressed their faces against the windows, pointing at things they saw. Dogs, birds, people riding bicycles. Have you ever been to a mall, Maria? Ethan asked. Maria shook her head. Not in America. Too expensive for me. I only go to small stores for basic things. You will love it. Evan said. There are so many stores and lights and people. And there is a huge fountain in the middle. Maria smiled at their excitement, but inside she felt more and more nervous. The boys had been to this mall many times with their mother and nannies. They knew how things worked. Maria did not. When they arrived, Maria saw that Westfield Mall was enormous. It was 3 floors high with glass elevators and shiny marble floors. Everywhere she looked, there were expensive stores with names she could not pronounce. Beautiful clothes hung in windows. Jewelry sparkled under bright lights. People walked around carrying shopping bags from designer stores. Maria held both boys' hands tightly as they walked inside. She felt very small and out of place. Her old dress suddenly felt shabby. Her worn shoes squeaked on the polished floor. People glanced at her and then looked away quickly. She knew what they were thinking. They wondered what a woman like her was doing with 2 children who were clearly from a wealthy family. But Ethan and Evan did not care about any of that. They held her hands and pulled her forward, chattering excitedly about all the things they wanted to show her. Their innocent joy made Maria feel a little braver. They found the shoe store on the 2nd floor. It was a fancy children's store with toys and games while parents shopped. A young saleswoman with perfect makeup approached them. She looked at Maria's dress and shoes, then at the 2 boys in their expensive clothes. Her smile was polite but cold. May I help you? She asked, speaking slowly as if Maria might not understand English. Yes, please, Maria said softly. The boys need summer shoes. 2 pairs each. The saleswoman's eyebrows went up when Maria pulled out Mrs. Harrison's black credit card. Her attitude changed immediately. Suddenly she was very friendly, bringing out boxes and boxes of shoes. The boys tried on many pairs. They ran around the store, testing each one. Finally, they picked sneakers for playing and sandals for the summer. At the checkout counter, Maria's hand shook as she handed over the credit card. The total was $680. That was more than Maria earned in 2 weeks. The saleswoman swiped the card and Maria held her breath until it was approved. She signed the receipt very carefully, making sure her handwriting was neat. Thank you, the saleswoman said, her voice sweet now. Have a wonderful day. Maria took the shopping bags in the boys' hands and they left the store. She felt relieved. The shopping was done. Now they could go home. But the boys had other ideas. Maria, please, can we walk around a little? Evan asked. Just for a few minutes? Please? Ethan added. Mom never lets us just look around. She always rushes us. Maria looked at their hopeful faces. When did these boys ever get to just be children? Their lives were so scheduled, so controlled. Every minute was planned with tutors and lessons and activities. She checked her watch. It was only 10:30. Mrs. Harrison would not be home until after 2. Okay, Maria said, smiling. But just for a little while. And you must stay close to me. The boys cheered and hugged her. They walked through the mall slowly, looking in store windows. The twins pointed at toys and games, making up stories about the things they saw. Maria listened and laughed at their imagination. She bought them ice cream cones from a small shop, using her own money this time. It was a treat she could afford, and the happiness on their faces was worth every penny. They passed jewelry stores and clothing boutiques, electronic shops and bookstores. The mall was getting more crowded now. It was Saturday and families were coming out to shop. Maria noticed how other children walked with their parents, holding hands, talking and laughing. The parents looked at their children with love and attention. Maria felt sad for Ethan and Evan. They had everything money could buy, but they did not have enough of what really mattered: time with their parents. As they walked through the mall, Maria noticed something. The boys were different here than they were at home. At the mansion, they were always quiet and well-behaved, almost too well-behaved for 7-year-old boys. But here, away from their home and parents, they were more relaxed. They laughed louder. They asked more questions. They were just normal, happy children. "Maria," Ethan said, tugging her hand. "Why do you always look sad when you think we do not see you?" Maria was surprised by the question. She thought she hid her feelings well. "What do you mean, sweet boy?" "Sometimes your eyes look sad," Evan added. "Like you missed something." Maria felt tears come to her eyes, but she blinked them back. These boys were so young, but they noticed everything. They saw her in a way that no one else did. "I miss my home," Maria said honestly. "I miss my mama and papa. I miss my village and my friends. But I am here to work and send them money so they can live better. That makes me happy even when I feel sad." Ethan squeezed her hand. "We would be sad if you left," he said quietly. "Very sad," Evan agreed. "You are the only one who really talks to us." Maria's heart broke a little. She knelt down so she was at eye level with the boys right there in the middle of the busy mall. People walked around them, but Maria did not care. "I love you boys very much," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You are like my own children. And I am not going anywhere. I promise." The twins hugged her tight. Maria held them close, these two lonely boys who had so much but needed so much more. In that moment, she understood that she was not just their maid. She was family to them. Maybe the only real family they had who truly saw them for who they were. When they finally stood up, Maria noticed people watching them. Some smiled warmly. Others looked confused, probably wondering about the relationship between this simple woman and these obviously wealthy children. Maria did not care anymore what anyone thought. These boys needed her, and she needed them too. They continued walking, and the boys' energy seemed endless. They wanted to see everything. They dragged Maria from floor to floor, their shopping bags swinging. Maria's feet hurt in her old shoes, but she did not complain. This day was special, different from the routine at the mansion. Here they were free. As they reached the main atrium on the first floor, Evan suddenly stopped walking. He stood completely still, staring at something in the center of the open space. Ethan stopped too, following his brother's gaze. Maria looked to see what had caught their attention. In the middle of the atrium sat a beautiful grand piano. It was black and shiny, sitting on a raised platform. Above it hung a sign that read, "Play Me," in elegant letters. There were benches around the piano where people could sit and listen. Right now, no one was playing. The piano sat silent and waiting like a beautiful jewel in the center of the busy mall. Maria had never seen anything like it. In her village, there were no pianos. Music was played on guitars and simple instruments. This piano looked like something from a movie, something too beautiful and expensive to touch. "Maria," Evan whispered, his eyes still fixed on the piano. His voice sounded different, almost hungry. Can we play it?" Maria looked at the piano, then at the crowd of people walking by. She felt nervous. The boys had never mentioned knowing how to play piano. They had many tutors, but she had never heard of a music teacher. Besides, if they tried to play and made terrible noise, people would stare. People would judge. Maria already felt out of place here. She did not want to draw more attention. "I do not know, sweet boy," Maria said carefully. "Do you know how to play piano?" The twins looked at each other. Something passed between them, some silent communication that only twins could share. They both looked nervous and excited at the same time. "A little," Ethan said quietly. "We know a little. Please, Maria," Evan begged. "Just one song?" "We will be quick." Maria looked at their faces. They looked at her with such hope, such longing. When did these boys ever ask for anything they really wanted? When did they ever get to do something just because it made them happy? She thought about their lonely lives in that big mansion. She thought about how they had no real childhood, no real freedom. "Okay," Maria said finally. "But just for a minute. And you must be gentle with the piano." The boys' faces exploded with joy. They handed Maria their shopping bags and walked quickly toward the piano. Maria followed, her heart beating fast. A few people glanced at them but kept walking. The twins climbed onto the piano bench together, sitting side by side. Their feet did not quite reach the pedals. They were so small, so young. Maria stood beside the piano, watching nervously. She expected them to bang on the keys like most children would, making random noise. She was ready to pull them away and apologize to anyone nearby. But she was not prepared for what happened next. Not at all. Evan placed his small hands on the piano keys. His fingers were tiny against the white and black keys that stretched across the instrument. He took a deep breath and then he began to play. The first notes that came from the piano were soft and sweet. They floated through the air like gentle birds. Maria's mouth fell open in shock. This was not random banging. This was real music. Beautiful music. Ethan joined in, his hands moving to the lower keys. His part was deeper, creating a foundation for his brother's higher melody. Together, the twins played like they had been doing it their whole lives. Their small hands moved with confidence and grace. They did not look at the keys. They did not hesitate. They just played. Maria stood frozen, unable to believe what she was seeing and hearing. Where had they learned this? How did they know how to play so well? She had worked in the Harrison house for 3 years. She had never seen a piano there. She had never heard the boys practice. Yet here they were, playing like young masters. The music filled the atrium. It was a classical piece, something Maria did not recognize but could feel deep in her heart. The melody was sad and beautiful at the same time. It made her think of her home, her parents, all the things she had left behind. Tears came to her eyes without warning. Around them, people began to stop walking. One person stopped, then another, then more. They turned toward the sound of the piano, curious about where such beautiful music was coming from. When they saw it was 2 small children playing, their faces showed surprise and wonder. More and more people gathered. They formed a circle around the piano, watching in silence. Some pulled out their phones and started recording. Others just stood and listened, their shopping bags forgotten at their sides. The music seemed to cast a spell over everyone in the atrium. The twins played on, unaware of the growing crowd. They were lost in the music, in their own world. Evan's eyes were closed as his fingers danced across the keys. Ethan watched his brother, matching every note perfectly. They moved together like 2 halves of one person, completely in sync. Maria looked at the crowd. There were at least 30 people now, maybe more. They came from all directions, drawn by the music. Young people, old people, families with children, businessmen in suits, teenagers with backpacks. All of them stood quietly, captured by the beauty of what these 2 7-year-old boys were creating. A woman standing near Maria wiped tears from her eyes. "That's Chopin," she whispered to her husband. "Nocturne in E-flat major. I played it in college. These children are incredible." Maria did not know what Chopin was, but she knew the woman was right. The twins were incredible. How had she not known about this talent? How had their parents not known? Or did they know and just not care? The first piece ended with a soft, gentle note that seemed to hang in the air. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the crowd erupted in applause. People clapped and cheered. Some shouted, "Bravo!" The noise was so loud that the twins finally seemed to realize they had an audience. They looked up from the piano and saw all the people watching them. Their faces turned red with embarrassment, but they also smiled. "Another one," someone in the crowd shouted. "Play another song." "Yes, please." Others agreed. The twins looked at each other, then at Maria. She could see they wanted to continue. They wanted to play more. Maria's mind was spinning with confusion and questions, but she nodded. Let them play. Let them have this moment. Ethan's hands moved to the keys this time. He began a new piece, and immediately Maria could feel the difference. This music was happier, more playful. The notes jumped and danced. Evan joined in, and together they created a sound that made people smile. Some people in the crowd started moving their heads to the rhythm. A little girl began dancing, twirling in circles while her mother watched and laughed. The crowd grew even larger. People on the 2nd and 3rd floors leaned over the railings to see what was happening. The atrium, which had been filled with the normal sounds of shopping and conversation, was now focused entirely on 2 small boys at a piano. Store employees came out of their shops to watch. Security guards stopped their patrols and listened. Maria felt overwhelmed. She was happy for the boys, proud of them, but also confused and a little scared. This was too much attention. What if Mrs. Harrison found out and was angry? What if Maria had done something wrong by letting them play? But looking at Ethan and Evan's faces, seeing their joy and confidence, Maria knew she had made the right choice. This was who they really were, she realized. This music was their true voice, the thing they had been hiding. The second piece ended, and again the crowd applauded loudly. This time the boys stood up and took a small bow like professional musicians. The crowd loved it. They clapped even harder. "Where did you learn to play?" a man shouted from the crowd. "How old are you?" a woman asked. "Do you give concerts?" another person called out. The twins looked overwhelmed by all the questions. They sat back down at the piano, as if the instrument was their safe place. Without speaking, they began to play again. This time the music was slower, more emotional. Maria recognized something in it, a feeling of loneliness and longing. It was like the boys were telling their story through the music, expressing feelings they could never put into words. As they played, Maria noticed a man in an expensive suit pushing through the crowd. He had gray hair and glasses and carried a leather briefcase. He stopped near Maria and watched the boys intently. When the piece ended, he approached Maria quickly. "Excuse me," he said in a smooth voice. "Are you the mother of these talented young men?" Maria shook her head. "No, sir. I am their caregiver. I work for their family." The man's eyebrows went up, but he handed Maria a business card. "I'm Richard Chen, a music professor at the university. These boys have extraordinary talent. They need proper training, proper opportunities. Please have their parents contact me." Maria took the card with shaking hands. Before she could respond, more people approached. A woman with short red hair and an expensive camera around her neck stepped forward. "I'm a reporter for the City Times," she said excitedly. "I'd love to do a story about these boys. Where do they study? Who is their teacher?" I don't know," Maria said honestly. She felt panic rising in her chest. "I do not know where they learned. I did not know they could play at all." The reporter looked confused but excited. "Even better. Mystery prodigy twins discovered at the mall. This is a great story. Can I have their names? Their parents' contact information?" Maria backed away, clutching the shopping bags. "I am sorry. I cannot give that information. Please excuse me." She quickly moved to the piano. The boys were still sitting there, talking to people who had gathered around them. Everyone wanted to shake their hands, to compliment them, to know more about them. The twins looked happy but also tired and a bit scared by all the attention. "Boys," Maria said gently but firmly, "we need to go now. It is getting late." "Ah, Maria," Evan protested. "Can't we play one more song?" "Please?" Ethan added. But Maria saw how big the crowd had become. There were at least 100 people now, maybe more. This was too much. She needed to get the boys home before something went wrong. "No, sweet boys. We must go. Your mother will be home soon." The twins looked disappointed but nodded. They understood that Maria's word was final. As they stood up from the piano bench, the crowd applauded again. People called out thank yous and compliments. The boys waved shyly and followed Maria through the crowd. Getting out of the atrium was difficult. People kept stopping them, trying to talk to them, asking questions. Maria held both boys' hands tightly and kept moving forward. She said, "Excuse me and sorry, we must go," over and over. Finally, they broke free from the crowd and headed toward the exit. As they walked quickly through the mall, Maria's mind raced with questions. Where had the boys learned to play? Who taught them? Why did they keep it secret? How could they play so beautifully at such a young age? And what would Mrs. Harrison say when she found out? Maria called Robert, the driver. Her voice was shaking as she told him they were ready to be picked up. While they waited outside the mall entrance, the boys were quiet. They knew Maria was upset, even though she tried to hide it. "Are you angry with us?" Ethan asked in a small voice. Maria knelt down and looked at both boys. "No, my sweet boys. I am not angry. I am confused and worried. That was very beautiful, what you did. But I do not understand how you learned to play like that, and I am worried about what your mother will say." "We're sorry," Evan said, tears forming in his eyes. "We didn't mean to cause trouble." Maria's heart melted. She pulled both boys into a hug. "You did not cause trouble. You made something beautiful, but you need to tell me the truth now. Where did you learn to play piano?" The boys looked at each other nervously. "Can we tell you in the car?" Ethan asked. "It's a long story." Maria nodded. "Yes, in the car." When Robert arrived with the SUV, they all climbed in. Robert asked if everything was okay. Maria said yes, everything was fine. But inside, she knew everything had changed. Something important had happened at the mall, something that could not be undone or forgotten. As Robert drove them home, the boys sat close to Maria. They held her hands and looked nervous. Finally, Evan took a deep breath and began to speak. "We need to tell you a secret," he said quietly. "A big secret. But you have to promise not to be mad. And you can't tell Mom and Dad," Ethan added quickly. "Please, Maria, if they find out, they'll make us stop." Maria felt cold inside. What secret were these boys keeping? "I promise I will not be mad," she said carefully. "But I cannot promise about your parents. If they need to know something important, I may have to tell them." That is my job." The boys looked at each other again, having one of their silent twin conversations. Then Evan nodded and began to tell the story. 6 months ago, he started, Ethan and I were playing hide-and-seek in the house. You know how big the house is. There are so many rooms we never go into. We went to the west wing, Ethan continued. You know the part of the house that nobody uses? It's old and dusty. Mom says it needs to be renovated, but Dad never has time to deal with it. We found a door that was unlocked, Evan said. Inside was a big room with old furniture covered in white sheets. And in the corner there was a piano. An old beautiful piano. Maria listened carefully. She knew the west wing of the mansion was closed off. Mrs. Harrison had told her never to clean there because it needed work. Maria had never been curious enough to explore it. We walked over to the piano, Ethan said. We pulled the cover off it. It was so pretty, Maria. All shiny wood and white keys. We had never seen a real piano before, only on TV. We started touching the keys, Evan added, just tapping them to hear the sounds. And then we heard a voice behind us. We turned around and there was an old man standing there. We got so scared. Maria's eyes went wide. An old man? In your house? Did you tell your parents? No, wait, Ethan said quickly. Let us finish the story. The old man wasn't scary. He was nice. He had white hair and kind eyes. He smiled at us and said, I see you found my old friend. He told us his name was Henry, Evan continued. He said he used to work for our grandfather before grandfather died. He was the butler for many years. He said grandfather had given him permission to visit the house sometimes, to check on things in the west wing. He had a key. Henry asked if we wanted to learn to play the piano, Ethan said. He told us he used to be a music teacher, a long time ago in a place called Vienna. He said music was the most beautiful thing in the world. We said yes, Evan said, his voice getting excited now. We met him every Saturday morning, very early before anyone else woke up. He came through a side door in the west wing. He taught us how to read music, how to move our fingers, how to feel the music in our hearts. Henry is so smart, Ethan added. He knows everything about music. He makes it fun. He tells us stories about famous musicians and plays recordings for us. He says we have special talent, that we're natural musicians. Maria sat in shock, trying to process everything. These boys had been keeping this enormous secret for 6 months. They had been sneaking around their own house, learning from a stranger, and nobody knew. Not their parents, not the other staff, not Maria herself. Why didn't you tell anyone? Maria asked. Why keep it secret? The boys looked sad now. Evan spoke quietly. One day before we met Henry, we heard Dad talking on the phone. He was in his office and we were in the hallway. We weren't trying to listen, but we heard him say something. He said, Ethan continued, his voice getting even quieter, that piano and art and music were a waste of time. He said boys need to learn business and science and useful things. He said his father had wasted too much time on music and that's why the company almost failed. He said we would never learn music because it was useless. Maria felt her heart sink. She could imagine Mr. Harrison saying exactly those words. He was a cold man who only cared about business and money. He probably did think music was a waste. And Mom agrees with him, Evan added. She says we need to focus on important subjects. She wants us to go to the best business school when we're older. She wants us to take over Dad's company someday. But we love music, Ethan said, and now there were tears in his eyes. We love it so much, Maria. When we play, we feel happy. We feel free. It's the only time we feel like ourselves. So we kept it secret, Evan finished. Henry said we should. He said sometimes the most precious things need to be protected. He said we could tell our parents when we were older, when we were so good they couldn't say no. Maria pulled both boys close. They were crying now and she felt tears on her own cheeks too. These poor children, hiding something so beautiful because they were afraid, living a secret life just to feel some joy and freedom. Henry is a good man, Evan said through his tears. He never asked for money. He just wanted to teach us because he loves music. He said teaching us makes him remember why he became a musician in the first place. Please don't tell Mom and Dad, Ethan begged. Please, Maria. If they find out, they'll fire Henry. They'll lock up the piano room. We'll never get to play again. Maria held them tight as Robert drove through the city streets toward the mansion. She did not know what to say. She understood why the boys kept the secret. She understood their fear. But she also knew that what happened at the mall today was big. Very big. And secrets like this could not stay hidden forever. I need to think, Maria said finally. This is very complicated. But I promise you this, I will always do what is best for you boys. I love you and I want you to be happy. Let me think about what to do. The boys nodded, sniffling and wiping their eyes. They trusted Maria completely. She was the only adult in their lives who really listened to them, who really cared about their feelings. As they pulled up to the mansion, Maria saw Mrs. Harrison's car in the driveway. Her charity luncheon must have ended early. Maria's stomach dropped. Would Mrs. Harrison ask about the mall trip? Would she somehow already know what happened? They all got out of the car. Robert helped carry the shopping bags. The boys held Maria's hands as they walked to the front door. Maria said another quick prayer, asking for wisdom and strength. Whatever happened next, she needed to protect these boys and their beautiful gift. They walked into the mansion quietly. Maria's heart was beating fast. The boys squeezed her hands tightly. They were all nervous about facing Mrs. Harrison. But when they entered the large foyer with its crystal chandelier and marble floors, the house seemed empty and quiet. Hello? Maria called out softly. Mrs. Chen, the cook, appeared from the kitchen. Oh, you're back, she said. Mrs. Harrison called. The luncheon is running late. She won't be home until 4 o'clock. She said to give the boys lunch and make sure they do their homework. Maria felt relief wash over her. They had more time. Thank you, Mrs. Chen, she said. The boys ran upstairs to put away their new shoes. Maria went to the kitchen to help prepare lunch. Her mind was still spinning from everything that had happened. She kept seeing the image of the twins at the piano, their small hands creating such beautiful music. She kept thinking about their secret, about Henry, the old butler who taught them in the closed-off West Wing. While she made sandwiches, Maria thought about what to do. Should she tell Mrs. Harrison about the piano performance? It seemed wrong to keep it secret. But if she told, the boys would never forgive her. They would lose their music lessons with Henry. They would lose the one thing that made them truly happy. Maria knew what it felt like to lose something precious. She had left her home, her family, her whole life behind to come work in America. She did it because she had no choice, because her parents needed the money. But every day she missed her old life. Every day she felt the pain of that loss. She could not be the one to take music away from Ethan and Evan. The boys came back downstairs and ate their lunch quietly. They did not talk much, just pushed their food around on their plates. They were worried, Maria could tell. They kept looking at her, trying to read her face, trying to figure out what she was thinking. Everything will be okay, Maria said gently. I promise. Now eat your lunch. After lunch, the boys went to their study room to do homework. Their tutor had left them math problems to solve. Maria cleaned the kitchen and then started her regular chores. She vacuumed the living room, dusted the furniture, cleaned the bathrooms. While her hands did the familiar work, her mind kept working on the problem of what to do. Around 3 o'clock, Maria's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and saw a text message from her brother in Mexico. Mama is asking about you, the message said. She misses you very much. She wants to know when you can visit. Maria felt tears come to her eyes. She had not been home in 3 years. She could not afford the plane ticket and she could not take time off work. Her mother was 72 years old now, getting weaker every year. What if something happened and Maria never got to see her again? She sat down on the stairs and let herself cry for a moment. Life was so hard sometimes. She was here working in this giant mansion full of expensive things, but she felt so poor. Not poor in money, but poor in the things that really mattered. She was away from her family. She was alone. The only bright spots in her life were Ethan and Evan, these 2 lonely boys who needed her. Maria wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. She needed to be strong. She texted her brother back, "Tell Mama I love her very much. I am working hard and will come home when I can. Please kiss her for me." Then Maria went back to work. She had bedrooms to clean on the 2nd floor. As she walked down the hallway, she passed a large portrait of Mr. Harrison's father, the boy's grandfather. He was a handsome older man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Maria had heard stories about him from the other staff. They said he was different from his son, warm and friendly, someone who treated employees like family. Maria stopped and looked at the portrait. Is Henry telling the truth? She whispered to the painting. Did you really give him permission to come to the house? Did you love music? Of course, the painting did not answer. But Maria felt like the old man's eyes were kind, like he would have understood about the boys and their music. At 4:15, Maria heard the front door open. Mrs. Harrison was home. Maria quickly finished making the bed she was working on and went downstairs. Mrs. Harrison was in the foyer talking on her phone. She held up one finger to Maria, signaling her to wait. Maria stood quietly, her hands folded in front of her. She felt like a student waiting to see the principal. Finally, Mrs. Harrison ended her call and looked at Maria. "How was the shopping trip?" she asked, barely looking up from her phone as she scrolled through emails. "It was fine, ma'am," Maria said. "The boys got nice shoes. 2 pairs each, like you said." "Good," Mrs. Harrison said. She started walking toward her office. "Make sure they wear the new sneakers to tennis practice tomorrow." That was it. No more questions. No interest in how the boys had behaved or what they had done. Maria felt angry suddenly. This woman had no idea what her children could do, what talent they had, what was happening in their lives. She was too busy with her luncheons and her phone calls to really see her own sons, but Maria said nothing. She just nodded and went to find the boys. They were still in the study room, books open on the table. When Maria walked in, they both looked up with worried faces. "Did you tell her?" Ethan asked. Maria shook her head. "No, she did not ask many questions. But boys, we need to talk about what happened today. What you did at the mall was wonderful, but many people saw you. Many people recorded videos with their phones." "What does that mean?" Evan asked. "It means," Maria said carefully, "that other people might see those videos. The videos might spread on the internet. Your mother or father might see them. We cannot control that." The boys looked scared. "What if Dad sees and gets angry?" Ethan said. "What if they take away our music?" Evan added, his voice shaking. Maria sat down between them and put her arms around both boys. "Listen to me. What you have is a gift from God. It is beautiful and special. Music is not a waste of time, no matter what your father says. Music is important. It makes people happy. It touches people's hearts. I saw that today at the mall. But Dad doesn't think so," Ethan said sadly. "Maybe your father is wrong," Maria said. She knew she was taking a risk saying this, criticizing the boy's father. But she needed them to understand. Sometimes parents make mistakes. Sometimes they do not see what is right in front of them. Your father loves you, I am sure. But he does not understand about music. He does not understand what it means to you. Will you help us protect our secret?" Evan asked. "Please, Maria." Maria was quiet for a moment. She knew she should say no. She should tell them that secrets were wrong, that they needed to tell their parents. But when she looked at their faces so young and hopeful and scared, she could not do it. "For now," she said finally, "I will not tell your parents about today. But boys, you must promise me something. You must promise that if they find out another way, you will tell them the truth. No lying, and you must promise to be careful. This secret cannot last forever." The boys promised. They hugged Maria tight and thanked her over and over. Maria felt good about making them happy, but she also felt worried. She was protecting the boys, but was she doing the right thing? What would happen when the truth finally came out? That evening, everything seemed normal. Mrs. Harrison had dinner with the boys, but she spent most of the meal on her phone. Mr. Harrison called from Singapore on video chat for 10 minutes. He asked the boys about their studies and told them to work hard. He did not ask about their day or their feelings or what made them happy. After the call ended, the boys looked sad and empty. Maria helped them get ready for bed. She read them a story, like she did every night. Before she turned off the lights, Evan asked her a question. "Maria, do you think we will ever be able to play music without hiding?" Maria thought carefully before answering. "I hope so, sweet boy. I pray for it. Sometimes things have to stay hidden for a while, until the right time comes. Maybe someday your parents will understand. Maybe someday they will hear you play and realize how special you are." "I hope so too," Evan said quietly. Maria kissed both boys goodnight and went to her small room on the 3rd floor. She was exhausted from the emotional day, but before she could sleep, she needed to do something. She needed to know more about Henry, the old butler who was teaching the boys. Maria pulled out her phone and typed into the search bar, "Harrison Family Butler Vienna Piano." She did not really expect to find anything, but to her surprise, several results came up. She clicked on the first one. It was an old newspaper article from 20 years ago. The headline read, "Local Butler Returns from Vienna Music Academy." The article had a photo of a younger Henry standing next to Mr. Harrison's father. Maria read the article carefully. Henry Chen had worked for the Harrison family for 30 years. When he was a young man, he had dreamed of being a concert pianist. Mr. Harrison's father, who loved music, had paid for Henry to study at a famous music academy in Vienna for 2 years. When Henry returned, he continued working as the family butler but also taught piano to local children in his free time. The article called him a man of many talents with a generous heart. Maria felt tears in her eyes again. So Henry's story was true. He really had studied music. The boy's grandfather really had been a kind man who valued music. And Henry was teaching Ethan and Evan out of love, not for money. Just like the boys had said, Maria kept searching and found more articles. She learned that Mr. Harrison's father had died 5 years ago, when the twins were only 2 years old. After his death, Mr. Harrison had changed many things. He sold off parts of the company that his father loved but that did not make much money. He closed the music room in the mansion and donated the piano to a school. He made everything about business and profit. The articles painted a picture of 2 very different men, a father who loved art and music and people, and a son who only cared about success and money. Maria understood now why Henry came back to teach the boys. He was honoring his old friend, the boys' grandfather. He was giving them the gift that their own father refused to give. Maria put down her phone and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. She thought about rich people and poor people, about parents and children, about secrets and truth. She thought about how money could not buy the most important things: love, attention, freedom to be yourself. The boys had everything money could buy, but they were poor in what mattered. Maria had almost no money, but she was rich in the love she felt for the boys, and the love they gave her back. Life was strange and unfair and complicated. Maria said her prayers that night, asking God to help her know what to do. She asked for wisdom. She asked for the boys to be protected. She asked to see her mother again someday. Then she fell into a deep, troubled sleep. The next morning was Sunday. The Harrison family did not go to church. Mrs. Harrison slept late. Mr. Harrison was still in Singapore. The boys had no tutors or lessons on Sundays. It was supposed to be a day of rest, but Maria still had work to do. She woke early and went downstairs. While she was making coffee, her phone buzzed. It was a notification from a social media app that she barely used. The notification said, "You were mentioned in a viral video." Maria's hand started shaking. She clicked on the notification. There on her phone screen was a video of Ethan and Evan playing piano at the mall. The video had been viewed 2 million times. 2 million! Maria could not even imagine that many people. The comments were full of praise. "These kids are amazing. Where have they been hiding? Better than most professional pianists." Those lucky parents. People were sharing the video, tagging friends, talking about the twins everywhere. But what scared Maria most was the caption someone had written: "Billionaire Harrison's twin sons reveal secret musical talent at Westfield Mall. Who knew the Harrison boys could play like this?" Someone had recognized them. Someone had connected them to their wealthy family. Maria's heart pounded. This was bad, very bad. It was only a matter of time before Mrs. Harrison or Mr. Harrison saw the video. Maybe they already had. Maria ran upstairs to wake the boys. She needed to prepare them. She needed to figure out what to do. But when she reached their bedroom, she heard voices inside. She pressed her ear to the door and listened. Mrs. Harrison was in the room. Her voice was sharp and angry. "What is this?" she was saying. "How long have you been lying to us?" Maria opened the door quickly. Mrs. Harrison was standing in the middle of the room holding her phone. The twins were sitting on their beds in their pajamas looking terrified. Tears ran down their faces. "Ma'am," Maria said, trying to keep her voice calm. "Please let me explain." Mrs. Harrison turned to Maria. Her face was red with anger. "Did you know about this?" she demanded, shaking her phone at Maria. "Did you know my children have been learning piano behind our backs?" Maria did not know whether to lie or tell the truth. Before she could answer, Ethan spoke up. "Don't blame Maria," he said, his voice shaking but brave. "She just found out yesterday. We kept it secret from everyone. For 6 months," Mrs. Harrison shouted. 6 months you have been sneaking around, lying to us. And this video, do you know how embarrassing this is? Everyone is talking about you. Everyone is asking questions. Your father's furious. We're sorry, Mom, Evan said through his tears. We didn't mean to make you angry. We just love music. We just wanted to play. Love music? Mrs. Harrison said, her voice cold now. Music is not important. Your father and I have plans for you. Good schools, business training, taking over the company someday. We do not have time for silly hobbies like music. It's not silly, Ethan shouted suddenly, his fear turning to anger. It's beautiful. It makes us happy. Why don't you care about what makes us happy? Mrs. Harrison looked shocked. The boys never raised their voices, never talked back. She stood there for a moment, speechless. Then her face got hard again. Go to your study room, she said coldly. Now, you are grounded for a month. No outside time, no treats, no fun activities. And Maria? She turned to face the maid. You are to come to my office immediately. We need to talk about your future with this family. Maria's heart sank. She was going to be fired. She knew it. Mrs. Harrison walked out of the room, her high heels clicking angrily on the floor. The boys ran to Maria and hugged her tight. We're so sorry, Evan sobbed. This is all our fault. We didn't want you to get in trouble, Ethan cried. Maria held them close, her own tears falling now. It is okay, my sweet boys. Do not worry about me. I will be fine. You just be strong, okay? Remember that music is a gift. Nobody can take that away from you, even if they try. She kissed both their heads and then slowly walked out of the room. Her legs felt heavy. Her heart felt like it was breaking. She walked down the stairs to Mrs. Harrison's office, preparing for the worst moment of her life in America. Maria stood outside Mrs. Harrison's office door, trying to calm her breathing. Her hands were shaking. She had been fired from jobs before back in Mexico, but this felt different. This felt personal. She was not just losing a job. She was losing the boys who had become like her own children. She was losing the only family she had in America. She knocked softly on the door. Mrs. Harrison's cold voice called out, "Come in." Maria entered the office. It was a beautiful room with tall windows, expensive furniture, and shelves full of books that nobody ever read. Mrs. Harrison sat behind a large desk, her phone in her hand. She looked up at Maria with eyes that showed no warmth. "Sit down," she said, pointing to a chair across from her desk. Maria sat, keeping her back straight and her hands folded in her lap. She had dignity even in this moment. She would not beg or cry in front of this woman. "I want the truth," Mrs. Harrison said, "and I want it now. How long have you known about the boys and their piano playing?" Maria took a breath. "I found out yesterday, ma'am, at the mall. I had no idea before that. They kept it secret from everyone. You expect me to believe that?" Mrs. Harrison said, her voice full of doubt. "You spend more time with them than anyone else in this house. How could you not know?" "Because they are smart boys who are very careful," Maria said quietly. "They did not want anyone to find out. They were afraid." "Afraid?" Mrs. Harrison laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Afraid of what?" "We give them everything. The best food, the best clothes, the best education. What reason could they have to be afraid?" Maria felt anger rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. She needed to stay calm. "They were afraid you would stop them from playing music. They were afraid you would say it was a waste of time." Mrs. Harrison's face got red. "Well, it is a waste of time. Do you know how much work we put into planning their futures? The schools we want them to attend, the tutors we hire, the connections we build for them. They are going to take over $1 billion company someday. They do not have time for playing piano." "But ma'am," Maria said, choosing her words carefully, "what if the company is not what they want? What if music is their true path?" "Their true path?" Mrs. Harrison said, her voice rising. "They are 7 years old. They do not know what they want. We are their parents. We know what is best for them." Maria wanted to say so many things. She wanted to say that the boys were lonely and sad most of the time. She wanted to say that Mrs. Harrison barely knew her own children, barely spent real time with them. She wanted to say that music was the only thing that made them truly happy. But she knew none of those words would help. They would only make things worse. "Who taught them?" Mrs. Harrison demanded. "There must be a teacher. Someone has been coming to this house without our permission. That is trespassing. I could call the police." Maria's heart beat faster. She could not let Henry get in trouble. He was an old man who had done nothing wrong. He had only shared his love of music with 2 lonely boys. "Please, ma'am," Maria said. "The person who taught them is a good man. He did not do anything wrong. He only wanted to help." "His name," Mrs. Harrison said coldly. "I want his name now, or you are fired this instant." Maria felt trapped. If she protected Henry, she would be fired and the boys would have no one. If she told Mrs. Harrison about Henry, he might get in serious trouble. She did not know what to do. Before she could answer, there was a knock on the office door. Mrs. Chen, the cook, opened it and looked worried. "I am sorry to interrupt, ma'am, but there are people here." "Many people. They are at the front gate and they will not leave." Mrs. Harrison looked angry at the interruption. "What people? What are you talking about?" "Reporters," Mrs. Chen said. "News vans. People with cameras. They are saying they want to talk to you about the twin boys and the video." The security guard does not know what to do. Mrs. Harrison's face went pale. She stood up quickly and walked to the window. Even from the second floor, they could see the street outside the gate. There were at least 5 news vans parked there, along with cars and people with cameras. More were arriving every minute. "This is insane," Mrs. Harrison whispered. She grabbed her phone and started making calls. "James, call me back immediately. We have a situation. The press is outside the house because of the boys." She made several more calls, pacing back and forth. Maria sat quietly watching. In all the chaos, Mrs. Harrison seemed to have forgotten about firing her. Finally, after 10 minutes of phone calls, Mrs. Harrison turned back to Maria. "Go get the boys and bring them here," she ordered, "and tell all the staff not to answer the door or talk to anyone. Nobody speaks to the press, nobody." Maria nodded and hurried out of the office. She went upstairs to the study room where the boys were supposed to be. They were sitting at the table, their homework books open but not doing any work. Their faces were red from crying. "Your mother wants to see you," Maria said gently. "Come with me." "Are we in more trouble?" Evan asked, his voice small. "I do not know, sweet boy. But stay calm and tell the truth. That is all you can do." The 3 of them walked back down to Mrs. Harrison's office. The boys held Maria's hands tightly. When they entered, Mrs. Harrison was still on the phone, but she ended the call when she saw them. "Sit," she told the boys. They sat in 2 chairs next to Maria. "Your father is flying home early. He will be here tomorrow morning. Until then, we need to figure out what to do about this mess you have created." "We didn't mean to create a mess," Ethan said quietly. "Well, you did," Mrs. Harrison snapped. "That video has been viewed millions of times. Everyone is talking about it. News stations want to interview you. A talent scout from some famous music school wants to meet you. This is completely out of control." "I am sorry, Mom," Evan said, tears starting again. Mrs. Harrison sighed and rubbed her forehead. For the first time, she looked tired instead of angry. "Tell me everything," she said. "How did this start? Who taught you? And do not lie to me. The truth now." The boys looked at each other, then at Maria. She nodded at them, encouraging them to speak. Evan took a deep breath and began to tell the story again. He told about finding the piano in the West Wing. He told about meeting Henry. He explained how Henry had worked for their grandfather and loved music. As the boys talked, Maria watched Mrs. Harrison's face. She expected to see more anger, but instead she saw something else. Surprise, sadness, maybe even regret. When the boys finished their story, Mrs. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. "Henry Chen," she said finally. "I remember him. He worked for this family for decades. He was at your grandfather's funeral." She looked at the boys. "Your grandfather loved music very much. He played piano every single day. After he died, your father removed all the pianos from the house. He said they reminded him too much of his father." "Why didn't Dad like the pianos?" Ethan asked. Mrs. Harrison was quiet again. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. "Your father and grandfather had a complicated relationship. Your grandfather built this company, but he was not a traditional businessman. He cared more about people and art than about profits. Your father thought that was weak. When your grandfather died, your father changed everything. He made the company much more successful, much richer, but he also made it harder, colder." "Did grandfather play well?" Evan asked. "He played beautifully," Mrs. Harrison said, and now there were tears in her eyes. "On my wedding day, he played at the reception. Everyone cried because it was so beautiful. Your father was embarrassed. He thought it was too emotional, too soft for a businessman." The boys sat quietly, processing this information. Maria felt her heart breaking for this family. So much sadness, so much distance between them, all because of pride and wrong ideas about what made a man successful. "I want to meet this Henry," Mrs. Harrison said suddenly. "I want to talk to him. Do you know how to contact him?" The boys shook their heads. He just shows up every Saturday morning, Ethan said. He has a key to the side door in the west wing. Mrs. Harrison thought for a moment. Then I will wait for him next Saturday. Meanwhile, we need to deal with the press outside. She looked at the boys. Some people think you should give interviews. They think you should perform publicly, maybe even professionally, but that decision should be made carefully with all the facts. We just want to keep learning, Evan said quietly. We do not need to be famous. We just love playing music, Mrs. Harrison nodded slowly. I am beginning to understand that. She picked up her phone and made another call. Richard? It is Elizabeth Harrison. Yes, I saw the video. I am calling because I need advice. Your firm handles public relations crises and I have one at my doorstep. Can you come over? Good. 1 hour. After she hung up, Mrs. Harrison looked at Maria. The boys can go back upstairs. You stay here. We are not finished talking. Maria's stomach dropped. She had thought maybe Mrs. Harrison had forgotten about firing her. The boys did not want to leave Maria, but she nodded at them to go. It is okay, she told them. Go to your room. After the boys left, Mrs. Harrison studied Maria for a long moment. You care about my sons, she said. It was not a question. Yes, ma'am, Maria said. I love them very much. More than I do? The question surprised Maria. She did not know how to answer. I did not say that, ma'am. But you were thinking it, Mrs. Harrison said. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the reporters gathering outside. I am not a fool, Maria. I know I am not a good mother. I know I am too busy, too distant. James and I both are. We thought we were doing the right thing, preparing the boys for a successful future. But maybe we were wrong. Maria stayed quiet. This was not what she expected. That video, Mrs. Harrison continued, I must have watched it 20 times this morning. Do you know what I saw? I saw my sons happy, truly happy. I cannot remember the last time I saw them look like that at home. They were glowing. They were free. And I realized I had never seen that expression on their faces before. Mrs. Harrison turned to face Maria. There were tears on her cheeks now. I have been a terrible mother, she whispered. I have been so focused on their future that I forgot about their present. I forgot to let them be children. I forgot to ask what they wanted, what made them happy. Maria felt tears in her own eyes. It is not too late, ma'am. They are still young. You can change things, can I? Mrs. Harrison said. James will fight me on this. He will say music is a waste. He will want to shut this down immediately. Then you must fight for your sons, Maria said, surprising herself with her boldness. You must be strong for them. They need their mother to protect them, to support their dreams. Mrs. Harrison wiped her eyes and nodded. You are right. I know you are right. But it will not be easy. She sat back down at her desk and looked at Maria. I am not firing you. The boys need you. I can see that now. But I need you to help me. Help me be a better mother. Help me understand my sons. Maria felt relief wash over her. I will help in any way I can, ma'am. Good, Mrs. Harrison said. Now we need to prepare for James coming home tomorrow. He will be very angry. He will want to end all of this immediately. We need a plan. For the next hour, Maria and Mrs. Harrison talked. Really talked like they never had before. Mrs. Harrison asked questions about the boys, about their daily routines, about what made them happy or sad. Maria answered honestly, holding nothing back. She told Mrs. Harrison how lonely the boys were, how they craved attention and love, how they lit up when anyone showed genuine interest in them. Mrs. Harrison listened, really listened, and with every minute that passed, she seemed to understand more. The wall between them, the distance between employer and employee, started to crumble. They were not just boss and worker anymore. They were two women who both loved the same two boys and wanted what was best for them. When the public relations consultant arrived, Mrs. Harrison introduced Maria as someone important to this family, whose opinion I value. The consultant, a smart young woman named Jennifer, suggested they release a simple statement to the press, something that acknowledged the video but protected the boys' privacy. She also suggested they not do any interviews until Mr. Harrison returned, and they could discuss things as a family. That evening, a statement was sent to all the news organizations outside the gate. The Harrison family is proud of Ethan and Evan's musical talents. The boys have been learning piano privately and we support their artistic development. At this time, the family requests privacy as we consider next steps. Thank you for understanding. The statement did not answer many questions, but it was enough to calm the media frenzy a bit. Some reporters left. Others stayed, hoping for more information or photos. That night, Maria helped the boys get ready for bed as usual. But tonight was different. Mrs. Harrison came to their bedroom too. She sat on the edge of Evan's bed and looked at both her sons. "I want to apologize," she said softly. "I have not been a good mother to you. I have been too busy, too focused on the wrong things. I am sorry." The boys looked shocked. They had never heard their mother apologize before. Ethan started crying and Evan followed. Mrs. Harrison pulled them both close and held them while they cried. Maria stood in the doorway, her own tears falling, watching this family begin to heal. "Can we still play music?" Evan asked through his tears. "We will see," Mrs. Harrison said. "Your father and I need to talk. But I promise you this, I will listen to you. I will consider what you want. You deserve that." It was not a yes, but it was not a no either. It was hope. And for now, that was enough. After Mrs. Harrison left the room, Maria tucked the boys into bed. "See," she said softly. "I told you everything would be okay. Your mother loves you. She is trying." "What about Dad?" Ethan asked. "He will be so angry." "Your father loves you too," Maria said, though she was not completely sure that was true. "Maybe he will surprise us all. We must have faith." The next morning arrived too quickly. Mr. Harrison's plane was supposed to land at 9. He would be home by 10. The whole house felt tense, like everyone was holding their breath. The boys ate breakfast quietly. Mrs. Harrison paced the house, making phone calls. Maria cleaned things that did not need cleaning just to keep busy. At exactly 10:15, Mr. Harrison's car pulled into the driveway. Maria watched from a window as he got out. He was a tall man with gray hair and a serious face. He always wore expensive suits and carried a briefcase. He looked angry as he walked to the front door, his jaw tight and his eyes hard. Mrs. Harrison met him in the foyer. Maria could hear them talking from where she stood at the top of the stairs. Mr. Harrison's voice was loud and angry. "This is unacceptable, Elizabeth. Do you know what people are saying? Do you know how this makes our family look? The boys have been lying to us for months, and this Henry person has been trespassing in our home." "James, please calm down," Mrs. Harrison said. "Let us talk about this rationally." "Rationally?" Mr. Harrison shouted. "There is nothing rational about this situation. The boys need discipline, not music lessons. They need structure, not artistic nonsense. They need parents who love them and listen to them." Mrs. Harrison shot back, her own voice rising. "They need us to care about what makes them happy." Maria had never heard Mrs. Harrison stand up to her husband like this. She held her breath, listening. The argument continued, getting louder. Mr. Harrison demanded to see the boys immediately. Mrs. Harrison said he needed to calm down first. It went back and forth, neither one backing down. Finally, Maria heard Mr. Harrison say, "Fine, where are they? I will talk to them myself." Maria rushed down the hallway to the boys' room. They were inside, sitting on their beds, holding hands. They had heard the yelling. They looked terrified. "Your father wants to see you," Maria said gently. "Remember, be honest, be brave. Tell him how you feel." The boys nodded, but they were shaking. Maria walked with them downstairs to Mr. Harrison's office. He was standing behind his desk, still in his travel clothes, looking fierce and unapproachable. Mrs. Harrison stood near the window, her arms crossed. "Sit," Mr. Harrison ordered. The boys sat. Maria started to leave, but Mrs. Harrison stopped her. "Maria stays," she said firmly. Mr. Harrison looked like he wanted to argue, but did not. The room was silent for a moment. Then Mr. Harrison spoke, his voice cold and controlled. "I am very disappointed in both of you." The boys looked down at their hands. Neither spoke. The silence in the office felt heavy and painful. Maria wanted to say something to protect them. But she knew this was a moment between father and sons. She needed to let it happen. "Look at me when I am speaking to you," Mr. Harrison said, his voice sharp. Slowly, the boys raised their eyes. Maria could see they were trying hard not to cry. Mr. Harrison walked around his desk and stood in front of them. He was so tall and they were so small. The difference in power was obvious. "Do you understand what you have done?" Mr. Harrison asked. "You lied to your mother and me for 6 months. You brought a stranger into our home without permission. You made our family look foolish in front of millions of people. Do you have anything to say for yourselves? Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Evan just shook his head, tears starting to fall. Mr. Harrison made an angry sound and turned away from them. This is exactly the problem, he said to Mrs. Harrison. They have no discipline, no respect. They think they can do whatever they want and there will be no consequences. James, Mrs. Harrison said carefully. They are children. They made a mistake, yes, but they did it because they were afraid to tell us. We need to ask ourselves why they were afraid. They were afraid because they knew we would say no, Mr. Harrison said. And we would have been right to say no. Music is not important. It will not help them run a company. It will not make them successful businessmen. Maybe they do not want to be businessmen, Mrs. Harrison said quietly. The room went completely silent. Mr. Harrison turned to stare at his wife. What did you say? Maybe, Mrs. Harrison repeated, stronger this time. They do not want to be businessmen. Maybe they want something different. Maybe we should let them choose their own paths. Mr. Harrison's face turned red. That is ridiculous. They are 7 years old. They cannot make these kinds of decisions. We are their parents. We decide what is best for them. Like your father decided what was best for you? Mrs. Harrison said. Mr. Harrison went very still. His eyes grew cold. Do not bring my father into this. Why not? Mrs. Harrison said, walking closer to him. Your father loved music. He wanted you to love it too, but you rejected it because you thought it was weak. You thought it made him weak. Now you are doing the same thing to our sons. You are taking away something beautiful because of your own issues with your father. That is not true, Mr. Harrison said, but his voice was shaking now. It is true, Mrs. Harrison said. I have been thinking about this all night. Your father was not weak, James. He was kind and creative and human, and you loved him even if you did not agree with his choices. Our sons have his gift. They have his talent. Are you going to take that away from them the way you took away his memory from this house? Mr. Harrison stood very still. His hands were shaking. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then, to everyone's surprise, Mr. Harrison sat down heavily in his chair. He put his face in his hands. His shoulders began to shake. Mrs. Harrison moved closer. James. When Mr. Harrison looked up, there were tears on his face. Maria had never seen this cold, hard man cry before. The boys stared at their father in shock. They had never seen him show emotion like this either. I miss him, Mr. Harrison said, his voice breaking. I miss my father every single day. And you are right. I took away his pianos because they hurt too much to see. Every time I looked at them, I remembered all the arguments we had. All the times I told him he was wrong about business. All the times I was too busy to listen to him play. And now he is gone, and I can never tell him I am sorry. Mrs. Harrison knelt beside her husband's chair. She took his hand. Then do not make the same mistake with our sons, she said gently. Do not let pride and fear keep you from seeing who they really are. Mr. Harrison looked at the twins, really looked at them maybe for the first time in a long time. Tell me the truth, he said, wiping his eyes. Do you really love music? Or is this just something you thought would be fun? Ethan and Evan looked at each other. Then Evan spoke, his voice quiet but clear. We love it more than anything, Dad. When we play, we feel whole. We feel like ourselves. Music is not just something we do. It is part of who we are, like it was part of Grandfather, Ethan added. Mr. Harrison closed his eyes. More tears fell. I never got to hear him play one last time, he said. Before he died, he asked me to sit with him while he played. But I was too busy. I had a meeting. I said maybe later. But later never came. He died that night, and I never got to hear him play again. The room was filled with sadness now. Everyone was crying. Mrs. Harrison, the boys, Maria, even Mr. Harrison. All the pain and regret and lost chances hung in the air like a heavy cloud. I do not want to make that mistake again, Mr. Harrison said finally. He looked at his sons. I want to hear you play. Will you play for me? The boys looked surprised and hopeful. Right now? Evan asked. Yes, Mr. Harrison said. Right now. Show me what you have been learning. Show me why this matters so much to you. But there is no piano here, Ethan said. You took them all away. Mr. Harrison stood up slowly. Not all of them, he said. Your mother said you have been playing in the West Wing. Let us go there. All of us. The group walked through the mansion to the West Wing. Mr. Harrison had not been to this part of the house in years. When they opened the door to the old room, Dust floated in the sunlight. The furniture was still covered in white sheets, and in the corner sat the old piano, just as the boys had described. Mr. Harrison walked to the piano slowly. He pulled off the cover and touched the wood gently, like he was touching something precious and fragile. "This was his," he whispered. "My father's favorite piano. I thought I had gotten rid of them all, but I forgot about this one." He sat down on the bench and placed his fingers on the keys. He pressed one note, then another. The sound was beautiful, even though the piano was old and probably out of tune. "He tried to teach me," Mr. Harrison said. "When I was young, before I decided I did not have time for music. I was not very good. I did not have the gift." He stood up and gestured to the boys. "But maybe you do. Show me." Ethan and Evan climbed onto the bench together. They looked at each other, communicating without words like they always did. Then they began to play. They played the same piece they had played at the mall, the Chopin Nocturne. The music filled the dusty room, bringing it back to life. Maria watched Mr. Harrison's face as he listened. She saw shock first, then wonder, then something that looked like pain mixed with joy. Tears ran down his face openly now. He did not try to hide them. Mrs. Harrison stood beside him, holding his hand, crying too. When the piece ended, Mr. Harrison went to his sons. He knelt down so he was at their level. "That was the most beautiful thing I have ever heard," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are both so talented, so incredibly gifted, and I am so sorry I almost took this away from you." The boys threw their arms around their father's neck. The three of them held each other and cried. Mrs. Harrison joined them, wrapping her arms around her whole family. Maria stood back, giving them this moment. Her heart was so full she thought it might burst. After a while, Mr. Harrison stood up. He wiped his eyes and took a deep breath. "We need to talk about Henry," he said. "The man who has been teaching you. I want to meet him." "He comes every Saturday morning," Evan said. "He should be here in a few days." "Good," Mr. Harrison said. "I need to thank him for giving my sons something I was too stubborn to give them myself." Over the next few days, things changed in the Harrison house. The change was small at first, but it was real. Mr. Harrison canceled a business trip so he could be home on Saturday. Mrs. Harrison spent more time with the boys, asking them questions about music and listening to their answers. The whole family seemed lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. On Saturday morning, Maria woke early as usual. But today felt different. Today felt important. She helped the boys get ready and made them a special breakfast. Mrs. Harrison came down early too, something that almost never happened. Mr. Harrison was already in his office, working on his laptop but checking his watch every few minutes. At 8 o'clock, they all went to the West Wing. They opened the door and waited. At 8:15, they heard a key turning in the side door. The door opened and an old man walked in, carrying a bag of sheet music. He was short with white hair and gentle eyes. He wore a simple sweater and old pants. When he saw the family waiting for him, he stopped in his tracks. "Mr. Harrison," Henry said, his voice shaking. "Mrs. Harrison, I can explain." "Please do," Mr. Harrison said. His voice was not angry, just curious. "My sons told me you have been teaching them. They told me you knew my father." Henry nodded slowly. He set down his bag and stood straight even though he looked nervous. "I worked for your father for 30 years, he said. "He was the kindest man I ever knew. When I was young, I dreamed of being a concert pianist, but I did not have money for school. Your father found out about my dream and he paid for me to study in Vienna for 2 years. He said everyone deserves a chance to follow their passion." Mr. Harrison's jaw tightened, but he stayed quiet. Henry continued. "When your father died, I was heartbroken. He had given me so much. At his funeral, I promised his memory that I would honor his love of music somehow. Then 6 months ago, there is one condition," Mr. Harrison added. "I want you to teach me too. I want to learn to play, the way my father wanted to teach me when I was young. It is too late to play for him, but maybe I can play for my son someday." Now everyone was crying again. Henry nodded enthusiastically. "It would be my greatest joy to teach you," he said. Mrs. Harrison stepped forward. "And I want to learn too," she said. "I want to understand what my sons love so much. I want to be part of their world, not separate from it." The boys ran to their parents and hugged them tightly. Maria watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. This was what she had prayed for. This was healing and love and family becoming whole. Over the next few weeks, everything changed. Mr. Harrison hired contractors to renovate the West Wing and turn it into a proper music room. He brought in piano tuners and bought new instruments. He cleared his schedule to take lessons with Henry twice a week. Mrs. Harrison learned too, though she said she was terrible and made everyone laugh with her mistakes. The boys thrived. They practiced every day, getting better and better. Henry said they could be professional musicians someday if they wanted to. But more importantly than their skill was their joy. They smiled more. They laughed more. They seemed lighter and happier. The media attention eventually calmed down. The family released another statement saying the boys were pursuing music education privately and asking for continued privacy. Most reporters respected that. Some talent scouts and music schools kept trying to contact them, but Mr. and Mrs. Harrison were careful. They said the boys were too young for big decisions. First, they needed to just be children who loved music. One day, about 2 months after everything changed, Mr. Harrison called Maria to his office. She went nervously, still not completely comfortable with how much things had shifted. Mr. Harrison was behind his desk, but he stood when she entered and gestured for her to sit. "Maria," he said, "I owe you an apology. Actually, I owe you more than that. I owe you gratitude." "Sir?" Maria said, confused. "My wife told me how you protected the boys that day at the mall," he said. "How you let them play even though you were scared. How you listened to them when no one else did. You cared for them when Elizabeth and I were too busy or too blind to see what they needed." "I just love them, sir," Maria said simply. "I know you do," Mr. Harrison said. "And they love you. You are more than an employee to this family, Maria. You are family, and I want to do something for you." He handed her an envelope. Maria opened it carefully. Inside was a check for $50,000. Maria gasped and nearly dropped it. "Sir, I cannot accept this. It is too much." "It is not enough," Mr. Harrison said firmly. "My sons told me you send money home to your parents every month. They told me you have not seen your mother in 3 years. This money is so you can visit her. Take a month off, paid. Go home, see your family. You deserve that." Maria started crying. She could not help it. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." "And when you come back," Mr. Harrison added, "you will have a new position. Not as a maid, but as the family manager. A salary 3 times what you make now, with benefits and your own apartment if you want it. You will help us take care of the boys and manage the household. What do you say?" Maria could barely speak through her tears. "Yes, thank you, yes." 2 weeks later, Maria was on a plane flying home to Mexico. Mrs. Harrison had helped her pack and had bought her new clothes for the trip. The boys had made her cards and drawings to give to her parents. Mr. Harrison had arranged everything, making sure she had first-class tickets and a car waiting at the airport. When Maria saw her mother again, when she held her in her arms after 3 long years, she cried so hard she could not breathe. Her mother was older and weaker, but she was alive and smiling. They spent a month together, talking and laughing and making up for lost time. Maria told her mother all about Ethan and Evan, about the piano, about how everything had changed. When Maria returned to America, the boys ran to her at the airport. They hugged her so tight she thought they might never let go. "We missed you so much," they said over and over. "I missed you too, my sweet boys," Maria said, kissing their heads. That evening, there was a surprise waiting for Maria. The whole family was in the music room, which was now beautiful and bright with new paint and lighting. In the center of the room sat a gorgeous new grand piano, and beside it on a stand was a framed photograph. It was an old picture of Mr. Harrison's father sitting at a piano, smiling at the camera. "We wanted grandfather to be here with us," Evan explained. "So we put his picture in the music room. Now he can watch us play." Mr. Harrison stood beside the photograph, his hand resting on the frame. "Every time we play now," he said, "we play for him and for each other. And because music is not a waste, music is what makes us human. Will you listen to us play?" Ethan asked Maria. "We learned a new piece while you were gone. Henry said it is very hard, but we can do it." Maria sat in a comfortable chair while the family gathered around the piano. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison sat on a sofa, holding hands. Henry stood beside the boys, ready to turn pages if they needed help. And Maria sat watching them all, this family that had been broken and was now healing, this family that had become her own. The boys began to play. The music was complex and beautiful, filling the room with sound that seemed to come from heaven itself. As Maria listened, she thought about how strange and wonderful life was. She had come to America poor and alone, looking for work. She had found so much more than a job. She had found purpose. She had found love. She had found a family. And these two boys, who had everything money could buy but nothing that really mattered, had found their voice. They had found the courage to be themselves, to fight for what they loved, and in doing so they had saved their whole family. When the piece ended, everyone applauded. The boys bowed dramatically, making everyone laugh. Then they ran to Maria and climbed onto her lap, even though they were getting too big for that. "We love you, Maria," they said together. "I love you too, my sweet boys," Maria said, holding them close. "Forever and always." Mr. Harrison stood and raised a glass of wine. "A toast," he said. "To family, to music, to second chances, and to Maria, who taught us all what really matters." Everyone raised their glasses. Even the boys had sparkling juice in special glasses. They clinked them together and the sound rang through the music room like bells. 6 months later, the twins gave their first small concert. It was not a big public event, just a gathering at the house for friends and family. Henry played first, showing everyone that he still had his gift after all these years. Then Mr. Harrison played a simple piece, making mistakes but smiling through them. Mrs. Harrison played a duet with Henry, and everyone clapped even though she was not very good. And finally the twins played together, creating magic. In the audience sat Maria's parents, who Mr. Harrison had flown in from Mexico as a surprise. They held hands and cried as they listened, amazed that their daughter had become so important to such a talented, wonderful family. After the concert, while everyone ate cake and talked, Maria stepped outside into the garden. She looked up at the stars and said a prayer of thanks. She thanked God for bringing her to this family. She thanked God for Ethan and Evan and their beautiful gift. She thanked God for second chances and healing and love. "Maria?" a voice called. She turned and saw the boys running toward her, still in their concert clothes. "Come back inside. Dad is going to tell stories about grandfather." Maria smiled and took their hands. Together they walked back into the house, into the light and warmth and music, into the family that had started as employer and employee but had become something so much more. Into home. The music room had been transformed. Where there was once dust and sadness, there was now light and joy. Where there was once silence, there was now music. And where there was once distance and coldness, there was now a family learning to love each other, to listen to each other, to see each other for who they really were. As Maria stood in the doorway watching Mr. Harrison tell stories about his father, while the boys listened with wide eyes, as she saw Mrs. Harrison laughing and Henry smiling his gentle smile, as she felt the warmth of belonging and purpose, she understood something important. This was not just a story about two boys who learned to play piano. It was a story about finding your voice when the world tells you to be quiet. It was about having the courage to be yourself even when it is scary. It was about families learning to truly see each other. And it was about how love, real love, could heal even the deepest wounds. The twins caught Maria's eye from across the room and waved at her. She waved back, her heart full to bursting. These boys had been lonely and lost, hiding their true selves in fear. But now they were free. Now they could play their music openly, with parents who supported them and celebrated them. And Maria, who had come to America with nothing but hope and determination, had helped make that happen. Not through grand gestures or heroic actions, but through simple, steady love. Through showing up every day. Through paying attention. Through caring. Sometimes the most important things happen in quiet moments. Sometimes the biggest changes start with small acts of kindness.